It's 11 a.m. Eastern time, and this is plugged in with Justin Fisher and Ray sitting in for Zach today. Zach couldn't quite make it into the office, so Justin, how the hell are you today?
Wonderful. What a lovely surprise to see your beautiful face, Ray.
Well, the surprise is that you would say it's a beautiful face. My first recommendation would be an optometrist, but that's neither here nor there. So, Justin, I got pulled into this just a short time ago, and I am not as up to date on EVs and what's going on in the EV world, as you know. But I believe if I can check something on my computer, I believe today's topic is this is the question, the big question, the question that is on everyone's mind, at least everyone at Toyota, Nissan, and Honda. Can Toyota, Nissan, and Honda ever catch up in the EV race? How do we answer that question, Justin?
Well, let's consider that all three of these legacy automakers have been key players in electrification, believe it or not, since like pre 2010.
Wow.
Now, Ray, back in like 2008, 2009, 2010, we didn't talk much about electric vehicles, but what was like the emerging technology back in the early 2000s? It was hybrids, right?
I seem to recall, yes.
And I seem to recall that a lot of people were like, "Are these hybrids ever going to stick around? Are they even worth anything? Are they going to last 5 years? Is it going to cost 20,000 to replace the battery?" And here we are, over a decade later, and not only have hybrids grown in market share and popularity, they've now taken it uh, way further into fully electric vehicles. Now, this all, I wouldn't say it all started, but a big chunk of it started with Toyota, Honda, and Nissan. Toyota and
Hmm.
Honda, they kind of pioneered the reliable electric hybrid powertrain. So, do you remember seeing those bug-eyed Honda Insight scooting around town in 2005? And of course, the Prius. Can't forget the Prius.
Well, I do remember seeing the occasional bug-eyed Honda Insight, but not to the same degree that I saw the Priuses. Um, but may I say something? Those questions that you brought up. Will people buy these? Will these last? Will they still be around? What about the batteries? Those are the same questions today. They haven't
Yes.
changed.
Yes, and there are some interesting parallels, but also some stark differences, such as the fact that in those hybrid powertrains from 2005, they didn't know what the heck they were doing with battery chemistry because those hybrids, they still had a small, very small battery, but some of them were made with different nickel chemistries that ended up being just complete trash. I believe the early Honda Civic hybrid, they had to get their batteries replaced under warranty for everyone because they were so horrible. So that was a huge trial and error period. And
Wow.
you could say that right now we're in a trial and error period with battery electric vehicles. However, we've already seen through the likes of Tesla that there are EVs on the road with 250, 300,000 miles in the odometer. We've seen many examples of EVs where the original battery can last over 200,000 miles. So we've learned some things clearly from what Honda and Toyota have done in the past 2 decades. But really, let's think about this. Are they prepared for what is already happening in the industry with Tesla selling nearly a million vehicles in 2021? Toyota has not offered a single purely electric vehicle until now. And we'll talk about that. Ray, have you seen any signs in the industry that these legacy automakers are prepared for the competition that's already here?
Well, I've read words. I've read press releases. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're ready or they're prepared. Um, but I've read somewhere that there's in excess of a half a trillion dollars being committed to the EVs of the future by most of the legacy manufacturers out there. And I just can't imagine that they're agreeing to invest this kind of money if they don't think they can play in this game.
Yeah, I need to revise that estimate of half a trillion because multiple automakers have increased their investments. Don't spit out that water, Ray, but it might surprise you to know that many have actually upped their investments since I published that article 6 months ago. So now we're looking at over $500 billion. But what amazes me that over at Toyota, who's known for their reliable hybrid powertrains, we had the CEO of Toyota, Akio Toyoda, saying just a few months ago that EVs are a bunch of hype. He
Mhm.
literally said that. I'm not sure if you remember. He
I
said
do.
he said they're a bunch of hype. Now, his reasoning is that they're not nearly as sustainable as many claim they are, which is, I mean, honestly, that's a fact. They're not a perfect solution to anything. He was saying that the power grid still fuels the batteries. It provides electrons to the battery packs that is often originating in fossil fuels. While that is true, not only is the power grid cleaning up very rapidly in most, but not all parts of the world, including here in the United States, but what Toyota's own CEO seemed to overlook is the fact that no matter where electric vehicles get their energy from, they're far more efficient. Are they way more expensive to produce with lower margins? Yeah. But if he's trying to make the point that that's why they're overhyped because they get their power from the electrical grid, I mean, that's why you have 100 miles per gallon equivalent EVs on the road today. It's because the electric motor, although it may have its faults, it's much more efficient, like 3 times as efficient as combustion engines. So it's not really a good argument to make if you're the CEO of Toyota, especially if you don't have a single EV on the road yet.
Maybe that's the argument you make when you don't have a single EV on the road yet. I do have a question for you. You mentioned something earlier that I found really interesting, and maybe it's just because I'm naive to electric vehicles and how they work. But your comment was that there are many electric vehicles out there that have 250,000, 300,000 miles on them, and the batteries are still good.
Notably Teslas. I can't say that for others.
My question would be, um, is it miles driven that impacts battery life, or is it just time that impacts battery life and the number of times that a battery or the batteries are charged? Is that I because when we look at gas cars and we say, oh my God, it's got 250,000 miles on that engine, on that car. Well, there's so many moving parts that it takes to have that engine operate that it requires a tremendous amount of maintenance. And obviously, with electric motors, there's not quite as many moving parts. Um, so, is it miles or time and charging that impacts batteries more than anything?
It's how they're charged, how often are you fast charging the batteries,
Hmm.
and conditions. So even extreme heat can wear down a lithium ion battery much quicker. So most electric motors used in EVs today only have, believe it or not, about 20 to 50 moving parts in the electric motor. That is, as you know, far fewer than you'll find in a combustion engine.
I'm pretty
So,
sure.
yeah, there's, which by the way, interesting fact, some of those parts still need lubrication from oil.
Hmm.
There's actually some oil, a small amount in
Yes.
electric powertrains. But what we're seeing is that if EV drivers are fast charging. Maybe they have lifetime free charging because they have a 2013 Tesla Model S. If
Hmm.
they're going to that Tesla supercharger every day to fill up their battery, then they're going to be degrading the battery pack much quicker. So those are not the ones who are going to have the best longevity. It's the people who are like 80% of EV drivers who mostly charge at home overnight. You just plug it into either a 110 volt or 240 volt outlet and let it sit overnight. If you got a 110 volt, you might add 30% battery capacity overnight. If you have a 240 volt, you'll have a full battery by the morning. Well, it's those drivers who are having the best longevity because fast charging in its current engineered state
Hmm.
is very harmful for the battery. But it's just amazing to me that we have so many examples of EVs going 200,000 miles on a single battery pack. Those are Teslas. I cannot say that any Nissan Leafs, like the one behind me,
Hmm.
modified into a truck. Uh,
Yes.
None of those are doing quite those marathons of battery longevity, but it's still pretty interesting.
But so if I heard what you said correctly, it really has more to do with charging, how it's charged, and time than it necessarily has to do with miles driven.
Yes. Now, I
Okay.
see Mark is with us in the chat, and Mark is one of our YAA members who's actually a battery expert. And
Okay.
Mark could definitely teach us a thing or two or three about batteries and battery life. Now, I know that we've discussed on the forum, so make sure everyone's heading over to the YAA forum for great battery conversations. That heat is far more damaging to batteries than cold. So that's kind of interesting right there. Now, one thing that's going to heat up a battery quickly is fast charging. So whenever
Hmm.
I take my Hyundai Ioniq 5 over to Electrify America, that battery heats up very fast when I'm trying to ramp up to 230 kilowatts. And that's actually bad for my battery. But whenever I'm
Gotcha.
charging at home, it's not going to warm up the battery nearly as much at 1.4 kilowatts.
So so i- would that indicate then that if you live in the Great Southwest, where it's a desert and it gets hot, and it's not unusual, say, especially in the Phoenix area during the summer, to have a normal high temperature somewhere between 110 and 120 degrees during the course of a day, that that electric vehicles wouldn't be as efficient in that type of climate as they would elsewhere in the country.
Yes, generally, but we've also seen a lot of degradation in extreme cold. So Canadian EV owners know that they're getting like sometimes 50% of the rated range, which is horrible. If you have a 200-mile rated EV and you can only go 100 miles in the winter, that's bad. So it's not just in hot climates. And sometimes we've even seen hot climates where EVs perform better than you'd expect. So, what I'm referring to is how often you're heating up the battery through
When you
charging.
charge it.
Yeah, not necessarily the weather. Hot
Gotcha.
weather is going to drag down your efficiency, especially because of climate control usage. That's the main thing when you're talking about Phoenix, Las Vegas. I was recently there last summer. Ooh, that was horrible. Um, it's
It
mostly
gets
going to be
warm.
through the climate control. Yeah.
Now, I have a question for you, and I know maybe I'm getting slightly off topic, but then again, I don't do this show very often. Um, I read somewhere that Toyota wants to bet on, I believe it's solid state batteries.
Yes, now this is very promising, and it's like their Hail Mary. It's amazing. So I want to talk a little bit more about Toyota's plans because
Okay.
right now they're releasing the Toyota BZ4X. Why did they name it the BZ4X? Apparently, it stands for Beyond Zero and then just a number and a letter. But
Well, beyond zero, and it's four-wheel drive.
not all of them are.
Well, then I don't
Let's
know what
talk
the hell.
about that.
Then I
So
don't know what the hell it stands for.
yeah, let's talk a little bit more about Toyota because their BZ4X is their first fully electric vehicle ever to land in North America,
Okay.
and it starts at $42,000.
Okay.
It does qualify for the federal tax credit, which, if you have the tax liability, is up to $7,500 off of your next year's tax bill. Now, here's the problems that I have with the Toyota BZ4X. It does not seem to offer any benefit over the competitors. So, if you can get a base Hyundai Ioniq 5 or Kia EV6 for just 1,000 or 2,000 more,
Hmm.
and it charges twice as fast and it can go 50 miles further on a charge, are you going to buy the Toyota just because of brand loyalty?
Here, I'll answer that for you. Yes, people
Yeah,
will because
and
of
that
brand loyalty.
eh,
When you are the number one manufacturer of automobiles in the world, the number one retailer of automobiles in the world, you have created, it's not a cult like fan base like it is for Tesla, but you have created enough goodwill that people will buy that product over other products simply because they are loyal to the brand.
Yeah, and something interesting to note about the new Toyota BZ4X, their big shot heading into the mainstream of EVs, is that it was a partnership with Subaru.
Yes.
So Subaru's Solterra EV is built on the exact same platform. The Solterra is standard all-wheel drive. The BZ4X from Toyota, you can get it in all-wheel drive. But here's the thing: if you get the all-wheel drive Toyota BZ4X, you can only charge at 100 kilowatt speeds at a fast charger. Now, Matt and anyone else out there, I'm sorry, Mark and anyone else out there who knows about batteries understands that 100 kilowatt charging, and that's considered fast charging, that's
Yes.
not very impressive in 2022. You're going to be sitting at a charger for most likely 50 minutes, unless it has somehow an amazing charging curve where you're sustaining 100 kilowatts for most of that charging time. You're going to be sitting there for a lot longer than I do with my Ioniq 5. And I just don't see why buyers are going to be wanting a $42,000 plus electric vehicle in 2022 where they have to wait around for almost an hour every time they charge, which, by the way, is about every 200 miles. To be precise, I'll give them the full amount. It's 225 miles, I believe. Correct me if
Okay.
I'm wrong out there. That's not really impressive specs when you look at the competition.
So, what you're suggesting is if Toyota and Nissan and Honda really want to be in this race, um, that they're going to have to offer innovations, perhaps to attract more eyes than, say, their competition, than, say, the major competitor out there, which is Tesla, because Tesla's a proven commodity, has been around for what, a dozen years or so, or longer.
Yeah, and Teslas have gotten less and less affordable. So it's going to be interesting to see if these three are going to price their EVs in a competitive way to take advantage of how expensive Teslas have gotten, and if they're going to just eat those raw material costs that have been skyrocketing over the past year to try to maintain what slim advantage they might have in the pricing sector. But it's been very interesting to see how they've engineered their newest EVs, because we've also got the Nissan Ariya, which in my
Mhm.
opinion looks a lot cooler than the Toyota BZ4X. However, it still only charges at up to 130 kilowatts. Now, why am I emphasizing charging speed so much? Because surveys show that American consumers and consumers around the world who are considering switching to EVs, they care a lot about charging speed. And I don't know
Sure.
about you, but time is money. I don't necessarily want to sit around at an EV charger for 50 minutes if I can buy a different model that cuts that time in half.
No, one of the benefits today of still owning an ICE vehicle, and I think it will be a benefit going forward for a very long time, is the fact that when you need gas, you go to the gas station, you get out of the car, you open the gas tank, you put the gas pump in the gas tank, and 5 minutes later, you take it out, and you get back in the car and you drive away. And if you want to charge up your electric vehicle, you get out of the car, you plug it in, you go find somewhere to have lunch. Okay, now yes, it's cheaper to charge the car, but once you factor in lunch, it just got a hell of a lot more expensive. And I might add, my guess is that calorically speaking, the lunch that you bought at this charging station or any place close to that charging station is probably going to add, I don't know, a few pounds to you over time.
Yeah, interesting. Well, I will present my rebuttal now, which is that
Please do.
my 2022 Hyundai Ioniq 5 that I love
Yes.
so dearly, it charges in 18 minutes and then I'm out of there. And
Okay.
in that 18 minutes, I've got 2 years of free charging, so that 18 minutes didn't cost me anything. Um,
No, it just costs you time. That's all it cost.
yeah, and the
Yeah.
18 minutes for how I personally travel is not a problem because I like to get up and stretch. I've done that forever. So it
Hmm.
fits my lifestyle well. But are EVs a problem for those travelers who like to drive for 4 hours straight without stopping and then get there as fast as possible? Yeah, it's not compatible yet for those types of travelers. But let's not forget that Tesla's charge fast. The Kia and Hyundai eGMP platform, the EV6, the Ioniq 5, they charge fast. The upcoming Silverado electric truck charges very fast. So some automakers are reading the room. They get the point. Like if you want to have a successful EV that is future proof, it might have some resale value in 2030, who knows. You need
Hmm.
to have faster charging. You can't have your customers waiting around for 50 minutes to charge because they had brand loyalty. So it's interesting.
So if I may, if I can get back to solid state batteries
Oh
for a moment.
yes, that's
Okay.
where we're
What is what is the appeal of the solid state battery as opposed to the type of batteries that we're using now? And my understanding, as little as it is that it's really a tough technology to master, to be able to use them for these electric vehicles. What makes that so?
Yes, solid state batteries are supposed to be more stable and less fire prone, but we've recently had a few engineers from Toyota saying not necessarily. But Toyota is planning to bring solid state batteries to market in 2025 in the
Hmm.
form of a hybrid powertrain, not a full EV. Very Toyota, isn't it? But
Yes.
the benefits of a solid state battery are supposed to be more energy density, so higher energy density. That means you could have a more compact cell with the same amount of energy.
Hmm.
So instead of having a gigantic battery pack like what you have in the Hummer EV, 212 kilowatt hour battery pack. It's gigantic. You could
Hmm.
have a battery that's one quarter of the size with the same energy density, same range. And one thing that's really been emphasized is how solid state batteries should be able to promote the scalability of EVs. So if they're easier to produce, then you'd be able to make more EVs.
Hmm.
Now we have not had the chance to see if that's going to prove true because there's not a single EV or hybrid in production today that uses solid state batteries. Right now, there's still a laboratory experiment, like
Hmm.
literally in the lab. But what we're going to be looking at in the latter half of this decade is, are the automakers going to start to ramp up production of solid state batteries? Is that even going to be cost effective? Because right now they're still the cost is prohibitive to bringing them into mass production. They're still expensive science experiments, but it'll be interesting.
Let's assume for a moment, if we can, that they will find success in bringing solid state batteries to electric vehicles. Do do those battery packs, or would those battery packs weigh less than what the battery packs do in today's EVs?
Yes, for sure. And that's where there's like a multifaceted approach to improving efficiency because not only is the battery cell itself, which by the way, solid state batteries, they don't have a liquid electrolyte. So what that
Hmm.
means is you're saving weight from the get-go. You don't have a liquid. Liquids are heavy.
Yes.
So that's one way of improving efficiency is reducing weight. And in addition to making them more energy dense. Um, and I'm sorry, Ray, were we talking about efficiency or weight?
Well, I no, I was just curious about the weight, and the reason I
Mm,
ask about the weight is because, um, as you've mentioned in blog posts and articles that you've done for the website, um, that electric vehicles are exceedingly heavy. Um, I think the Hummer, for instance, a Hummer electric pickup truck is 9,000 pounds. Now, I'm just guessing, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm guessing that, say, a Hummer pickup truck weighing 9,000 pounds, traveling at, say, 65 miles per hour, that crashes into another
oh, yes.
9,000 pound vehicle
I've
is,
thought of this, Ray.
is going to create a tremendous amount of damage.
Yes.
And if ultimately you can lower the weight of vehicles, there would be less wear and tear on the roadways. And hopefully, the severity of damage from accidents when these things collide can be brought down to some degree. Would that be accurate?
Yes, that is accurate, and that is one of the many promises of solid state batteries. You are 100% correct.
For an old fart, and I define myself as an old fart.
Okay.
I think young. I mean, I don't know that I would own or drive an EV, but I think I see a slightly bigger picture than many people my age might.
We can't forget to talk about Honda.
Okay, please bring, because Honda I used to represent with the Acura brand for a dozen years, so I'm pretty familiar with our dear friends at Honda.
So let me tell you how things are going over at Honda with the EV space. So they've committed $40 billion to electrification this decade. That's a lot
Okay.
of billions.
Yes.
That's a lot of putting people through college. $40 billion, or
Mm,
we could use a chunk of that over here at YAA.
we
But
could.
yeah, what have they gotten out of it so far? Well, not a single EV yet. 2024 is when Honda's first EV will come to North America. They do have the Honda E. It's a tiny little car that they sell in urban markets in Europe.
Hmm.
But the first EV from Honda is not getting to North America until 2024. It's the Honda Prologue
Okay.
crossover, because everybody's got to have a crossover.
Sure. Maybe by that time everybody will want a sedan again. Uh,
Yeah, maybe they'll bring back the Honda Insight that they just killed as an
yes.
EV.
Yes.
Yeah, so
Maybe.
Honda's got an interesting strategy where they claim to be undergoing some amazing secret engineering behind the scenes that's going to lift Honda into the realm of EV mainstream success. However, there's something that we can't overlook, and it's the fact that they're actually relying on GM, General Motors,
Yes.
for their entire electric powertrain. They're going to be using General Motors' Ultium battery and motor platform. Now, the Ultium battery, it has a lot of promising specs. We're looking at fast charging, very, very good range, wonderful efficiency. It's not solid state. This is still
Hmm.
a traditional lithium ion battery with a liquid electrolyte. But the Ultium platform from GM is really something special to look forward to. It'll be making it actually already made its debut in the Cadillac Lyric, but we will
Okay.
see it soon in the Silverado electric truck. Now, Honda has decided to enter into this partnership. Why? The only reason that I can see is because they delayed the switch to EVs for far too long, thinking that their wonderful hybrid powertrains would reign forever. But now they know that that's not quite going to be good enough. So we'll see if the Prologue is worth the wait, because we'll be waiting for another year and a half.
Well, I will say this, having represented the Acura brand for as long as I did, um, that even when Honda had their hybrids, they were they were never nearly as popular as their competition at Toyota. People didn't say, well, I'm going to go get me a Honda Insight instead of a Prius. People might have said, I'm going to get me a Prius instead of a Honda Insight. Um, it, it, there's just certain areas where Honda has not been able to compete well with their major competitor, Toyota. And I think hybrid technology and their ability to market those vehicles to the general public has never done well, at least from my years of experience watching that brand. But then again, that's the same company that at a certain point in time, um, at the Acura division, green lighted the ZDX, which was a vehicle that appealed to, well, no one.
Well, let's wrap it up by reminding everyone that Tesla's planning to sell about 1.5 million vehicles in 2022. The Toyota BZ4X just arrived.
Hmm.
Maybe they'll sell 10,000 if they can find enough chips and battery materials to make them. The Nissan Ariya might arrive later this year. It's not quite available to the public yet. Maybe they'll sell 5,000. We might be looking at a situation where major automakers like Toyota, Honda, and what was our other one today? Nissan.
Nissan.
Yeah, Nissan with the Nissan Aria. They might be selling less than 20,000 EVs combined this year. Combined between the
Wow.
three of them. Where you've got Tesla, who was nothing a decade ago, selling
Selling a
1.5
million and a
million.
half. Yeah.
So can they catch up? I mean, in summary, they better start working a lot quicker on those solid state batteries if they want to catch up. They got to have some kind of competitive advantage. They better find a way to keep those prices low, right?
I
Tesla's
hear you.
cost $60,000 now. Well, if you can sell a good EV for $40,000 by 2023, maybe they've got a chance. But we'll see how things go, right, Ray?
Absolutely. We'll see how this all plays out. Well, believe it or not, another half hour has gone by. It's 11:30 and it's, well, time to sign off for today and this week. Justin, thank you for allowing me to be a part of this broadcast today. I don't know about you, but I had a wonderful time. And even though I won't be on Monday's broadcast, I'll look forward to watching it. So
Oh,
in the
we're
meantime, everybody have a great weekend. And I think Justin will see you back here Monday at 11.
see you Monday, and we'll definitely have you back, Ray. It was a
Well,
lot of
thank
fun.
you so much. Thank you, everybody, for being here today, and we'll see you all next week. Or if you can't get enough of me, you can see me again in a half an hour on news that you can use on the YAA channel. We'll see you soon. Take care,
Bye-bye.
Justin. Thank you.
Thank you.